Hi, I'm Lance.
Say hi, I'm Lance, or...
And I'm Mike.
And I'm Mike.
And we are just these guys, you know?
What is going on?
That is a caramel cappuccino
Goodness.
with a little cinnamon.
Well, here we go. Man. Talk about wishing you could control the past. If I'd have just said something.
I know. That's ask and ye shall receive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess one of these days I might actually learn.
Well, and that is what this is designed to help you learn to do. So what are we going to start doing with these next series of podcasts?
Well, we are going to begin to walk through 4 fundamentals that Dr. Parker has been teaching for a long time, and he was inspired to put it in a book. And it's called 12-2. And knowing we were going to do this, I've obviously been going back through the book. And I'm telling you right now, it is absolutely, the Bible is life-changing. This is life-altering.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
What I want the audience to know is Mike brought his book in, and the biggest compliment somebody can give an author is this book is mangled.
Yeah.
It is wrinkled. The pages are dog-eared. Things are highlighted. Notes are written in the margin, and that just warms my heart that you're actually digging into that and working on it.
Yeah. And admittedly so, the very first thing that I did this morning when I woke up was I completely violated fundamental number 1, which is, it's just a habit of the way. But here's the thing. The most important kind of revelation that I have had of recent times where I've been in the book is that I don't have to expect that to always be the case.
Right.
That I can absolutely change the way I think about what I think about this.
Exactly. And today we'll kind of talk about the introduction to the book, because the intro, and I don't know if we'll get to cognitive restructuring yet, but these two things kind of set you up to understand what your challenge is to try to do
Right.
with the 4 fundamentals.
Yep.
Now, they're fundamentals. They're the basics. These things underlie everything. So once you get the 4 fundamentals down, then you're ready to take the advanced steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, over the last 6 years, if you had the 4 fundamentals down, it would have made perfect sense, and you would have felt super comfortable to ask
Right.
for what you want.
Sure.
And that's, what the fundamentals are designed to do, is to reposition your brain, is to transform how you think, to empower you to pursue the things that you want in your life.
Yep.
And obviously, for a Christian, what the most fundamental thing we want is to know His will for us.
Absolutely.
And when that settles in, then we can actually seek to know.
Yep.
But up until this transformation in thinking occurs, we're trying to figure out what it is. But all the while, he's sitting there going, if you just ask me,
Yep.
I might be able to, shed some light on the subject.
It's right there under the closed cover of a book that is piling up dust for so many of us. Well, as an example, this morning, Coco, when she got to our house, one of the very first things, what she does is she gets her little area set up in the living room. She'll get this certain pillow out, this certain blanket out. She's got this bag of balls that she gets out.
Yeah.
And then she walked over to the chair and she looked up at her bottle and she just pointed at it, and all she made was a noise. And I knew exactly what she wanted.
Right.
We're really good at it when we're starting out.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of lose track of understanding the power that we have to be able to live in that kind of
Oh my goodness.
world.
It becomes so complex.
Sure.
We make it.
Yeah.
So in worldly terms, we call that drama.
Yep.
We create so much drama in our lives
Yep.
because of how we think.
Yep. Well, for those of you who are listening, and next week you'll be able to see I'm wearing a shirt today that is Mr. Albert Einstein's face and kind of Lance's hair. But the idea behind this, in my very simpleton way of thinking, that Albert Einstein had the theory of relativity. This is the theory of relatability.
Oh,
That's pretty good, isn't it?
yeah, I'm going to quote that.
Yes, and so this is improving our ability to relate to God and to others,
Yes.
and to ourselves, by the way.
Yes.
So I'm going to
Yes.
give this to you, and I'm
it's-
here to
No, it's
learn
not
with
about-
everybody else.
It's not about. I'm going to. I got a question for you.
Okay.
You're enjoying that cup of coffee right now,
I am.
and if you got to the bottom and saw a big goop of cat hair and phlegm, how might you feel?
I would immediately regret the past.
That's what you
Not
would
good.
think.
Not good.
How would you feel?
Yeah, I would be a little.
Would you be nauseated?
I would be a little
You're-
nauseated.
you're
yes.
holding your tummy.
Hair is not something that I enjoy in my coffee.
Yeah. Have you ever been eating like a little Jello cup and pull out a big scoop of hair?
Oh, I have a story where I
Throat.
had gone to Subway and gotten Dawn and I a sandwich, and the young lady, it was a young lady behind the counter making the sandwiches, long blonde hair. Got home, the very first bite that I took out of my sandwich, after I chewed it and swallowed it, I felt there was a hair. I grabbed a hold of it, and my arm wasn't long enough
Oh my
to
goodness!
pull the hair out
Of your throat,
of my throat.
your stomach, your throat.
And I immediately, here's how I responded. I immediately punched the sandwich, smashed it into the table, because hair. I don't do well with hair. So it's funny that you say that. Yeah, that's how I would feel.
Well, right now, there goes that bracelet again.
Yep.
Right now, there are some people out there who are turning off the podcast. They're grabbing their chest. They're getting ready to throw up as we talk about this.
Sure.
And that is part of the introduction here.
Yeah.
Is the
Okay.
power of the mind,
Right.
that we can think about something gross and have a physiological reaction to the thought.
It's so true.
If you think about something gross and then you find yourself dry heaving, the cat hair isn't here. The long hair from Subway is not in your mouth right now.
Mm-hmm.
But as you think about it, you start to have this physiological reaction.
Yeah, my saliva glands are working overtime right now.
And for the people we haven't lost yet,
Right?
that is the power of thinking.
Sure.
That we can have this thought, and that's all it is a thought, and then have this physiological reaction. So if a thought can change your body's function in an instant, imagine what it's doing to your emotional state,
You bet.
your motivation, your stress, your
Yep.
anxiety.
Yep.
The thought is so powerful that it actually can and does regulate all of our emotional, mental, physiological functioning.
Yeah. It has control.
And because the thought has that kind of power, that's why we as psychologists or cognitive behavioral psychologists, and we'll get to that more later,
Mm-hmm.
but that's why we focus so much on thinking, is because that is the keystone, the cornerstone that controls everything. And so learning to change how you think, and that was something, if you remember in the introduction, I kind of shout out to you about it, because that was a really powerful moment for me. You know, I began attending your church, and I'm walking in, and y'all are playing AC/DC and
Yeah.
Tesla.
Freaks a lot of people out.
Yeah, but there was part of me, I'm kind of going back and forth, like, I love this music, but does it belong in a church? And I started, I dig into you. I'm like, okay, well, he's playing this song for a reason. Let me listen to the song and see why he would choose to play a secular song in a church setting.
Sure.
And as I listened to the words of the song, I realized that there's a double meaning here.
Yep.
Jesus is Just All Right With Me by the Doobie Brothers. When I'm listening to it on the radio in the car, I kind of go one place with it, but when I'm sitting in church, I'm praising Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I got it without having to be told.
Yeah.
But where that real power came in is I was driving around one day and I heard this song by AC/DC, If You Want Blood, You Got It. And, up until this moment in time, in my mind, AC/DC has been this devil worshiping music,
Right.
back in the 80s and all that nonsense that went on.
Feel guilty about listening to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But as I listened to the words of that song, that moment, I envisioned Jesus singing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw those words coming out of Jesus's mouth, the entire song changed.
Yep.
If you want blood, you got it.
Yep.
Blood on the streets, blood on the rocks, blood in the gutter, every last drop. And that is exactly what God and Jesus did for us.
That's right.
In order to save all of us, the entire world, in order to free us from the dominion of sin, to overcome the law, to end the tyranny of the law, to free us from sin forever, he spilt every last drop of blood. And when I see Jesus saying those words to me, Lance, if you want blood, you got it. And you watch the Passion movies and they're dragging him through the street and blood's on everything. And I'm like, wow, my change in perspective about the song changed my entire emotional state about how I felt when I heard the song.
Yeah. It took AC/DC to BCAD for you. Took it to all about Jesus.
And so, I don't want to get ahead in the book too much. I didn't read it.
Sure.
I know you read it before you walked in here.
You just wrote it.
That's all I did. But as a cognitive behavioral psychologist, what we're talking about is we see people as being comprised of three elements: cognitions, which are thoughts; behaviors, which are what you do.
Yep.
And doing can be the words that you speak. And if you get highly technical with some psychologists, you can kind of lump some attitudinal shifts as a behavior, but essentially behavior is what you do. And then feelings.
Okay.
We are comprised of thoughts, behaviors, and feelings.
Yep.
And they're all intertwined.
Yep.
If you think this would be a great idea, then you're motivated logically. This would be a great idea. This would save me a lot of money. So I do it because it makes sense. So my thinking impacts my behavior. If I think I don't want to do it, then that thinking is going to impact my behavior. If I think this will save me a lot of money and that concept is exciting to me, now my thought that I'll do this, it'll save me a lot of money. And if an emotion follows behind that and I get excited about it, now my thoughts have impacted how I feel. My thoughts and my feelings now really drive and motivate me to do the behavior.
Yep.
And when I do the behavior, I now think about what I just did, and I may feel proud of myself. And so what I think, what I do, what I feel, they're all intertwined and they all work together. And so in cognitive behavioral psychology, we talk extensively about change how you think, change what you experience.
Yep. You used the example, if I'm remembering correctly of someone who's laying in bed in the morning and they decide that they're just not going to get up, that it's going to be a bad day anyway.
Right.
And so they're laying there, and then they go back to sleep, and then they wake up a little later, and they feel even worse.
Right.
Because what they thought affected their behavior is now affecting how they feel. And so we have the power right out of the gate to determine which direction we can go. And that's either like first thing in the morning. You're always talking about go somewhere inspirational first thing in the morning in your mind. Go to like a podcast, or go to a inspirational video or something to listen to, and feed your mind with positivity, not negativity. Even if that isn't necessarily the first thing that comes natural, do it anyway and begin to form that habit. And so, yeah, it's amazing. It really is how those three are connected so strongly.
Well, and you mentioned go somewhere in the morning. And I don't know that all the audience out there is computer literate, but it's a perfect analogy for morning time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I turn on my computer, it takes a few minutes for it to get up and running to where I can start to do something.
Sure.
What's happening is it's loading in certain programs in the background that are necessary to run the computer.
Yep.
And so before I ever start to think on the computer, it has loaded in the necessary program for me to be able to do that. Now, if one of those programs has a virus in it,
Yeah.
if that one of those programs are faulty, when I turn on the computer and the computer boots up and loads up and it starts running haywire, and I'm like, I can't do anything about that because I just turned it on and this is what it's doing.
Yeah.
And so for the technophobe out there, technophile out there, you're a technophobe.
Yeah, exactly.
For the technophile out there, for people who love technology,
Yep.
when something like that happens, you know, and you call into tech support, they may tell you, okay, turn on the computer, but hit F11 a whole bunch because you want to interrupt the boot up process.
Gotcha.
And load it up into a safe mode so you can then see what's happening and prevent that virus infected program from loading up. And then once you get that virus and program out, then you can start over and everything loads up correctly. And that's exactly what happens to us in the morning.
Yep.
When we wake up, our brain starts booting up.
Yep.
And those first few thoughts in the first 30 seconds, minute, 5 minutes of the morning, they load up and they set your attitude for the rest of the morning, the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And things can go off the rails real quick.
That's why for years and years, it's getting a little better, but that's only recently. I interrupted the boot up process by hitting the snooze button. And then I would hit it again, and I would hit it again. But really, it's just because I didn't want to get my day started.
Didn't want.
Right. And so
But I'm on
I'm
number 4 for those
changing. Sure, I'm changing because I'm deciding to do it. I'm changing that behavior. I didn't. No, I did. I hit the snooze button one time this morning, but it's uncommon. It would be 5, 6, 7 times before, which I look back on it and I think, what the heck was I thinking? But
what were you thinking?
it was a habit that I had allowed because I was in control, always have been, and I allowed it.
And the habit comes from how you think. So when the alarm goes off and you think, I don't feel good, I don't feel like getting up, I don't want to get up, those 3 thoughts. Here's the crazy thing. What is the computer language that your brain operates in as it's processing data, operating, thinking? What is that computer language called that your brain uses?
Memory.
English language. So right now,
Are you talking? Okay. I was trying to come up with a computer language. I was like, what the heck?
No, and it's, we have BASIC, we have COBOL, we have all these different computer languages.
Mm-hmm.
The computer language our brain uses is called English.
Gotcha.
And so if you're thinking, this guy's weird, well, what are you going to say later? That guy was weird. So the words going through your brain, the computer program, how you're thinking is reflected in how you speak.
Mm.
And so that's when I kind of ping on you, and I definitely ping on my clients. They get tired of me.
Sure.
But when I ping on you for a word, the word in and of itself is not a bad word, but there's a 90% chance that you're using that word as a clue to your perspective.
Mm.
So like don't, I'm always yelling about don't.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have any coffee. Well, that's fine because that's a factual statement.
Right.
There is no coffee here. I don't have coffee. And if I mean it in the factual sense, then that's a fair use of the word because it's a proper grammar and a proper thought. But if I say, I don't have any coffee, and I begin to cry, well, I am now thinking in a negative fashion. I am thinking about what I don't have as opposed to what I do have. And so how I think negatively versus positively, the clues are all around us. It's learning to identify these perspectives and begin the challenge of catching the old perspective and instilling the new perspective. Stop thinking the old way. Start thinking the new way. Is this sounding familiar?
A little bit of transforming of the mind.
Paul said, do not be conformed to the ways of this world.
Yep.
And so the ways of the world, he's not referring to don't go to the bar.
Right.
Don't yell at your wife. The ways. There's a Grace Point way of worshiping.
Mm-hmm.
There's the American way. Mm-hmm. And when we say the American way, we're referring to a belief system, a set of values, principles, what we find important and unimportant. All of that is the way.
Yep.
And so when Paul says, do not be conformed to the ways of this world, he is saying, don't think like this world. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So don't think the way the world thinks. Learn to think differently.
Yep. By the way, he's directing us towards the way, thinking like Jesus.
Well, wasn't that the original
Yep.
kind of name of Christianity?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah, it
the
was.
way?
Yeah. That's what they called the followers of Jesus. They were a part of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So-
and the way
Yeah.
is a
That-
new belief system.
You bet. So that's, for me, just on a very personal level, what makes this so... I'm trying to come up with the best adjectives not to over state it. It's just, it's connected really, really well to Scripture. Breaking it down to the basic four. If we can get on top of these four things, then it will change the way we perceive who Jesus is and what the Word is telling us. And so, to me, that's huge.
And I think that's where the calling was to write this was, I know this over here in my professional life,
Right.
that how we think leads to what we feel and leads to what we do. And a connection that was made in there, because I told you it was kind of born out of chaos. But I did a video a couple of years ago where I extolled the power of Creflo Dollar's 8 Steps to Change Your Life.
Yeah.
And in that video, in his 8 Steps to Change Your Life that I explained in the video, he talks about our situation and circumstances. We always find ourselves in the same situations and circumstances over and over and over. And we're, how do we get out of this? We want to change our life. We want to change our circumstances. and there's an 8-step walk to be able to do that. But right smack dab in the middle of those 8 steps is how you think leads to what you experience, leads to what you do.
Mm.
And there's steps before, there's steps after, but that critical element right in the middle,
Yeah, the meat.
how you think leads to what you feel, leads to what you do. And so it lays it out in nice format so you can see how we're living our lives. These 3 elements are stuck right in the middle of that. That's the controlling factor. And so how I think leads to what I experience. And I see so many people not having the experience in church that they want. And they're earnest and they're trying very hard
Yep.
to generate that experience, but it's always just kind of out of their reach, just on the other side. And if I do more, if I study harder, if I pray harder, and it's not about what you do, it's about how you perceive.
Yep. It's not about changing the experience itself. It's about changing your perspective of the experience and what God wants for you
And
in it.
when you change your perspective, then you will change your experience.
Yep. Yeah.
And so working out is drudgery. I don't like doing it. My perspective, and because I don't like doing it, I don't want to do it, and this is stupid. Now I'm going to experience the drudgery of going to the gym and working out. But if my perspective is this will improve my health, perfect example. If a year ago, if I had told you, hey, Mike, go gluten-free, it'll change your life.
Yeah. A year ago, I'd have said, excuse me. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. And then I'd have done nothing with it.
And if your physician said, Mike, you have to change your diet, you have to go gluten-free, or I am no longer going to see you as your physician. Boom. It's a doctor's order. You got to do it. He'll fire you if you don't. Would you have done it?
I'd have probably tried it, but it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it'd have been drudgery. It'd have
Yep.
been work. It'd
Yep.
have been complaining the whole time.
Yep.
Because your perspective at that time was one of this is silly, this is stupid, there's nothing to gluten, this is a bunch of hogwash.
I love bread too much. I love pasta.
You're
too
taking away
much.
everything that I love in this world. I can't have all this stuff.
Yep.
But you came to me last week and revealed a revelation in your life.
Oh, yeah. Gluten has been basically taking me out at the knees for a long time. I have been without pain for the first time in my joints, just inflammation in my joints. I mean, it's been years.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wake up in the morning, I'll stand up out of bed. And I had for years just accepted that this was my lot in life. This is just what I have to deal with for the rest of my life. And I now stand up and I don't have any pain. I'm telling you, I'm a champion for gluten-free.
And I don't know the answer to this question. That's the difference between a psychologist and an attorney. I ask questions I don't have the answer to.
Mm-hmm.
How is your lower back?
It's great.
Now, I remember playing golf with you
Mm-hmm.
and you having to quit
Yep.
because the pain you were experiencing was so intense.
Yep. I've played 2 rounds of golf in the last week and a half without any pain. It's I'm telling you, I feel. So let me try to control the past a little bit. I just feel foolish, but I'm so excited. I'm foolish for just a sec. I feel foolish for just a second, then I quickly move on to how amazing it is right now.
Right.
And in the moment right now, I have no pain, and it's incredible.
And the reason this behavior change occurred and then stuck was because of your shift in your attitude.
Yeah.
Something inside of you said, let's give this a shot. Let's see what it's about.
Yep.
I'm open to trying this and giving it a fair shot.
Yep.
That thought process, that attitude, then allowed you to have a positive experience when the positive results were showing.
Yeah. I wanted to give it a really honest and fair shake to really see, because it doesn't happen overnight. But it didn't take long. I'm telling you, it was maybe a week and a half, and I really felt completely different. So I don't know if everybody will experience that. I don't know, but it can't hurt to try.
Well, tell you what, I'm giving it a shot.
Cool.
We had gone on that vacation, and we noticed, by the second or third day, even, we were feeling good.
Yeah.
We were waking up refreshed. We didn't, feel compelled to have naps. A common experience for us older people
Sure.
is to have a big lunch and then be like, oh, I need a nap.
Mm-hmm.
Go lay down. None of that was going on. We walked 10, 15 miles a day, no pain. We slept well, and we were kind of self-analyzing. Why do we feel so good? And we started looking at the foods we were eating at the resort, and there was not a lot of breads or fibers. It was, fresh meats, fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, just a lot of clean food. And that's when we realized that, gut health.
Oh, yeah.
Gut health. And beyond gut health, the bowels.
Absolutely.
And so to explain to the listener who doesn't understand what we're talking about with gluten is a substance that's in a lot of wheats and flours and other product. And then the industry will take a wheat and grind it down into something else and then use it, say, in ice cream to thicken it up.
Yeah.
And so this substance that was originally in just kind of like wheat, rye, and barleys, this gluten now is infused in a lot of different foods. And why some people have Hashimoto's disease or celiac disease or gluten sensitivities is the body is having an allergic reaction to the gluten. And so imagine me with my horrible allergies to ragweed and pollen.
Yeah.
And I step outside on one of those, highly dangerous days where the green air, just, all the pollen's in the air. And I begin to sneeze. My face swells a little bit. My eyes get puffy and red, and tears start coming out of my eyes, and snot's coming out of my nose. And I'm miserable in my face and my head. That's an allergic reaction to a substance.
Sure.
Well, when our body has an allergic reaction to gluten, it's happening in our intestines. And intestines are very, very large. There's like 9 feet of intestines inside you.
Yeah.
And so when these things become inflamed, you feel horrible, you feel bloated, diarrhea, constipation. It's just a miserable experience. But because you're having that allergic reaction, the body ramps up the defense mechanisms to attack. And so your immune system comes online and just overreacts to what's going on with the allergic reaction. And so that's where the inflammation starts to come in as your body's trying to attack the foreign substance and trying to heal whatever damage it senses is being done. And your joints start to hurt, your neck, your lower back, you get all this inflammation.
Yep.
And here we are, suffering. So this is really funny. We eat something that causes inflammation, and then we go take and non-steroidal anti-inflammation, an NSAID, to relieve the pain.
We got a battle going on.
We cause the inflation, then we take a pill to reduce the inflation.
Right. Yeah, and that, for me, it was a whole nother level because I have rheumatoid arthritis. So in an attempt for, doctors to get that under control, they're prescribing me medications to take. And I'm telling you, they have the medication has helped, but the biggest difference maker has been getting rid of the gluten. As you were talking there, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, you know what? I used to get up 4 to it may be a little TMI, but I don't care. 4 to 5 times a night to go to the bathroom.
Right.
I really have a hard time staying asleep and going to the bathroom, except in the bed. No, you're up,
Right.
you're awake, and so that was causing the beginning of a bad day because they're not getting enough sleep. And as I was, I guess I can't 100% say that this is all connected, but I had allergies going on big time because we just went through the season. You just entered into it when all the Bradford pears were blooming and everything was flying around. I had allergies kicking my butt big time. I did this gluten-free stuff, and I don't have one bit of allergy going on today. It's so
incredible.
crazy. This is going to be the Gluten Haters Club. I'm telling you, it'll make a difference. Give it a shot.
See what's happening here? When he changed his ways, when he changed how he thought about diet, exercise, nutrition, what he's putting into his body, when he rethought all of that, then new behaviors became possible. New behaviors came to the forefront. When I dealt with the court systems for many years and families going through the conflict of divorce and child custody and co-parenting, I had a number of cases where one parent thought the child had a gluten allergy or gluten sensitivity, and so they wanted to feed the child a gluten-free diet for the child's health, whereas the other parent did not believe there was a gluten sensitivity, that the other parent was just being dramatic. And this would cause conflict between the parents to the degree that it would land them back in court.
Wow.
And then I would have to investigate what was going on with the family, with the child, to then advise the court about what to do in relation to the child's potential for gluten sensitivity or not. And so I did a lot of medical research and spoke to a lot of physicians about the topic.
Okay.
And even, with this weird word coming out of my mouth, even with an expert coming to a person and saying, this is the science of it, this is what your doctors have said, this is what the allergy tests show, this is how your son responds when he's fed gluten, this is how he responds when he's not fed gluten, the other parent refused to believe it.
Wow.
And so how they thought led to frustration, anger, irritation, annoyance, feeling like everybody's beating them up, and so if you think that way and feel that way, what are you going to do?
Yep.
And so you're not going to value the idea of a gluten-free diet,
right,
even for your child. And in some cases, out of spite, they would feed the child pizza. Pizza may not have been on the menu that night, but if they went to court that day and the court said no more gluten, they'd take them to Pizza Hut that night to prove everybody wrong.
Right.
And then the child becomes inflamed and is miserable. And so, we're talking in the introduction here about the power of how we think and the importance of changing how we think, and how changing how we think not only changes how we experience things, see things. My eyes were open to a whole new way of worshiping when I realized that if I thought of the music differently, I could then have a deeper, more spiritual experience, draw in closer to God by the music that I've always listened to. That change in perspective changed my emotional experiences and changed my behavior. And now Tish and I go to all these Christian rock concerts all over the state because of the power of the music and the words, and it becomes this, remarkable experience. You walk on cloud 9 when you walk out. Before that kind of revelation with the AC/DC stuff, music wasn't that big a deal to me.
Right.
And here is another example of changing how you think led to you changing what you do. And those two things completely changed not just your emotional experience, but your physical experience. And here you are today, excited, the recovering alcoholic. Hey guys, check this out. the newly non-smoker, the
Right.
freshly baptized Christian running around
Yep.
shouting joy
Yep.
over gluten.
Yeah. All because of a switch in how I was thinking. Yep.
And so over the next number of weeks, we're going to walk through these chapters and talk about, how do we reframe our thoughts? What is this cognitive reframing about? How does it work? Why
Yeah.
is it important? And then we'll introduce these 4 specific ways, 4 very specific filters that we load into our brain that cause us to have certain experiences. But what we're going to do is learn to identify those filters.
Yep.
So that we can see them when we're thinking a certain way. That gives us power to then choose a different filter or to choose a different way to think so that we can choose to have the experiences we want to have in a particular moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this is the power to change your world. It really is. Your relationships, your peace, and it all comes from Scripture, really, not you.
No.
Scripture. You just repeated it and put it into terms that we can connect with and really sink our teeth into. But it all comes from the good old Scripture.
And that's my hope. And what used to be seen as a weakness, I now see as a strength. And it took me a while to get there. But, going through graduate school in the early parts of my psychology career, I was very insecure about my intellect and my ability to write, reports and evaluations. And because I would read other psychologists' work, and they're just so intelligently written with such, beautiful language and big words, that, oh, wow, I forgot about that word. It's, psychoanalysis. But what I had to do in graduate school to be able to kind of understand what was going on was I had to learn their language with these big words and then define all those words down into a language I understood.
Yeah, translate it into a language that we understand.
I had to translate it from academia to
Yep.
redneck.
Yep.
Then I could understand it.
Yeah.
And for a while, I could translate it back so that the professors saw what they were wanting to see
Right.
to pass me along. And as I'm writing reports for the court and for other psychologists, I just felt so insecure about what I was writing because it was not as excellent as the academic work. But over the years, what I began to realize was that's actually a strength.
Absolutely.
Because I have had, and still to this day, I will have attorneys who will be working a case and they will have some work by a psychologist and they will hire me
Mm-hmm.
to read what that other psychologist wrote
Yeah.
and then explain it to them in a language they can understand.
Yep.
And that's what I attempted to do with this book, was take some pretty hefty, concepts
Right.
and change them into a language that I think most people can read and understand, and then go back and point you into the Bible, where these are the concepts that he is talking about or Paul is talking about that line up, mirror these psychological principles, changing how you think to empower you.
Yep.
This is the way.
Yeah. Maybe one that we can hit on next time is and you use it as an example in here as well, as the whole speck of dust in your brother's eye and the plank in your own.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly what it is that we control in that situation. So, yeah, it's good.
So for the listener out there, for the person watching on video, we're going to walk through this book over the next number of, say, however many it takes, 8-9 podcasts, 8-9 videos. So if you're tuning in for the first time, know that this next kind of segment is a 8 or 9 series that all connects together. And Obviously, if you're listening right now, it doesn't matter. But in order to understand what we're talking about in video number 4, you will have to have started in video number 1, because this stuff builds each week.
That's right.
On what we talked about the week before.
Tell them real quick how to get the book. What's the best way to get the book?
The book is 12-2, How to Transform Your Mind, written by R. Lance Parker. You can go on Amazon and type in the words 12-2, Lance Parker, and it'll pull it up. You can stop by my office, 8629 West Central. I have some for sale there. On Amazon, I think it's $15.99, $14.99 plus tax. At my office, it's just a flat $20. You can go to my website, theparkergroupinc.com, scroll down, read more about the book, and on that page, there's a link. So if you're a Barnes & Noble member or a Books A Million member, there's a link to all the different bookstores that are selling the book, so you can just click on it, and it'll take you right to that page. Now, this is time-sensitive information right now, but Mike is starting a Bible study in a week or two.
May 2nd.
May 2nd. And for people who are participating in Mike's Bible study, you swing by my office, the book is $10. And you just step in. You don't even have to talk to me. Just step in, grab a book, throw $10 in the little silver can there, and we're good to go. Because he wants you to have this book as he goes through the class. He's going to be using it in conjunction with the Bible study.
Yeah, it absolutely helps with perspective again, and how to get the most out of Scripture and know what God wants us to do with it and experience from it.
Yeah, and these are fundamentals. I'm giving a seminar to a state conference here soon, and the topics I'm talking about in the conference are 100% built on these fundamentals.
Cool.
Now, the higher end stuff we're going to be talking about, it sounds different, but every single one of them is drawn right out of these 4 fundamentals to be able to do the higher order stuff.
Yeah. Good stuff.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in and hanging all the way through. I'm Lance.
I'm Mike.
And we're just these guys, you know.
Have an awesome week.
See you next week on the channel.